Mike Krukow, in Krukow fashion, he releases the statement through the Giants, and he's just like, hey, just wanted to let you all know I'm leaving after this year. Straightforward to the point, as Krukow is wont to do. And so it's been really fun. It's been fun to give him and all of them their just due, reminisce a little bit, and nobody better to talk about it than the person who joins us on the River Islands guest line right now, and that is none other than the great Jon Miller. Good evening, Jon. How are you?
I was better before Mike made his announcement, but I'm still pretty good.
I bet that. I mean, can you take us through what that moment was like when you found out, and sort of how you processed it?
He had the kindness to call me yesterday and just said that he wanted to just let me know person to person, and he did the same thing with the other broadcasters and the other people involved in the broadcast, because he was very thoughtful. And so it was very sad, and it was something that we were able to talk personally and remember some stories and have some laughs, and then I tried to talk him out of it. But I also knew that this was a while coming, and a while it was a shock and very sad to hear. At the same time, I think we all knew that this day was coming, because it's very tragic. He's had this tragic health issue and a debilitating issue, and I told him, I said that the thing is that you've never been better, in my opinion, than you are right now. You're at the top of your game, and that is kind of the amazing part of it. There's no sadness at the ballpark when you're around Mike. He's the same as he's always been. He's upbeat. He's fun. He's full of energy, and he wants to talk about the game. And there's nowhere he'd rather be than at the ballpark on a game day. He's not one of those guys. We always would laugh about it. There would be guys from other broadcast crews who would come into town. They come by the booth, and can we, for God's sake, can we get a game that moves quickly tonight? Would that be all right? And Cook was always the same. Like, where would you rather be? I mean, this job is an imposition for you. You don't have really time for this. I mean, what is it that? I mean, because he looked at it, and I think we all looked at it as, man, this is the number one place we would want to be, that we're so lucky to be able to do this. And this is exactly what we wanted. And so for me, that was kind of who he is, that he loves being at the ballpark. He loved being a player. He always said the broadcasting, that's the second best job you could have. So the first best is to actually be a player. And he loved that, and he tried to hang on as long as he could, and because he didn't want that day to end. But then he did other things. He didn't go right into the broadcast booth. So he did some other things, and then the broadcast thing came up, and I think that there's nobody better at what he does. And obviously, Krukow, Kuiper as a team, that's great. But for me, Mike kind of defines the role of the years ago they used to call it, he was like the color man. He was the former player. He's the expert. The analyst now is a word that gets used. Well, he not just is great at it, but he sets you up at the beginning of a broadcast with not just the pitchers and the pitches they throw, but which hitters own them, or as he says, have ownage on them. And he kind of forewarned you, like when Madison Bumgarner was going to face the Dodgers, that it wasn't one of the big superstars. It was Kike Hernandez he was going to have to watch out for. That Kike Hernandez is the one that had ownage on Bumgarner, and it was confounding, but he would always point that out. So don't let it creep up on you by surprise when, where's Kike in the lineup? When's he coming up? Is there going to be anybody? So he would set that all up, but he also would evaluate the umpires and give you a scouting report on the umpires and what their zone was like, because that's what he did. as a pitcher. There was no ABS in those days. And as a pitcher, you knew your umpires and which one would give you maybe a little bit off the outside corner, which one would give you a little bit below the knees, which guy had a small zone that you're going to have to really be sharp that day because he just wasn't going to give you stuff. So he knew that. And then he, as a broadcaster, right at the beginning of every broadcast, he would clue you in about the umpire. And even with the ABS system now, that's all still very relevant because you only get a couple of those challenges and you got to pick your spots on those. And so how that umpire calls those games and the guys that are will call pitches out of the zone a strike where a hitter wants to challenge versus another umpire who maybe he's got a tight zone and maybe the pitcher will have and his catcher will want to challenge. So he gives you all that up at the beginning of the broadcast and to clue you in. And so to me, that's the way it should be done. And then he focuses on the game, what's happening now and what could be happening, what they're thinking. And he does it in a fun way that the whole thing is for fun. And yet he has, and I think their broadcast in particular, the two of them together, they have such respect for the players and all the hard work that they have put in to get where they are. He knows exactly how hard it is.
Giants broadcaster Jon Miller here on Willard and Diz 95.7 The Game. I know he hasn't traveled to road games in a number of years. How remarkable is it that he's been able to be this cogent and this good working from a booth with the team traveling far away?
He is somebody who doesn't just love the game and love to be at the ballpark, but when the team's away and he's not working the games, he's at a TV set and he's studying every game and he wants to know, and he'll call people at the ballpark and find out why did he do that? Did he say anything about why he made that move or why he chased that pitch or what happened to him on that play at second? He's all over that. He knows what's going on, whether he's there or not, because and I think that was something that the great part of working with him and Kite, Dave, I think all of us, that is where we would want to be. That's our number one choice for where we want to be any given day. That's why he was always so, it was mind-boggling to him when you have another broadcaster come in and say, man, for God's sake, can we get this game moving and get this game over with? It's like, wow, this must be an imposition for you, eh? But not for him. This is what he wants to do. This is where he loves to be, and he couldn't get over that. Like, we're so lucky to be able to do this and have it as our living, and to do it all these years. And he never fell away from that. And I think there's always been a thought that some guys, they do it for so long, and maybe there's a sell-by date on how long certain guys should be doing this kind of a job, that they just can't stay fresh much longer. So, but he's still fresh, and he's better now. I told him this yesterday. You're better now than you've ever been, and it's really so cool. Which is why it's so shocking to actually hear you say it, even though we knew that this day was coming. But at the same time, when you're in the booth with him and you're at the ballpark with him, that's the last thing that you think of is the tragic circumstances of what's happened with his body and his legs, and which is ultimately leading to this retirement, I think. But because he's so fresh and so into it every day, and as much as he might struggle in other aspects of everyday life, and Dwayne and I were talking about this in the car to the airport on Sunday. From Petco Park, that once he's at the park, all the physical problems and all of that's all gone away. He's just as great as he ever was, and for me, better than he ever was. It's almost like it's a celebration for him that he appreciates it now, even more than he always had ever appreciated it. And I think he always did appreciate it, but I think he appreciates it even knowing now what he knows about a life and the temporary nature of all these things, that it's almost like he turn this in a whole positive way, which is inspiring to all of us who are around him, to say, I'm going to celebrate it. I'm going to enjoy every minute of it more than I ever have.
Jon, it's been, if my math is correct, about 30 years that specifically you two have been both a part of this broadcast team. Do you recall your first impressions when you joined the Giants in '97 and how that relationship has kind of evolved through the years?
Well, I remember in spring training we were going to do a few games together on the radio, and I told him that I thought that he had the talent, that he should just not do the analysis on the radio, but he should do play-by-play. And I said, it'll make you more valuable, number one. And I have no question in my mind that you can do it. And so he was a little wary of it, but we went down to Tucson and, had the long drive down there. And we talked about it, and he agreed to try it. And there were a couple of things that he felt that didn't go well in description, and he was kind of upset about it. And so, but we had that 2-hour drive to go back up to Scottsdale afterward. And we analyzed the plays he was talking about, and I just gave him a couple of tips on, and I said, number one, this is the first time you ever tried it. So, maybe there'll be some rough edges, but try this, try that. And so we had that 2 hours to talk about it. Now, the next day he got to do it again. The next day, it was as if he'd been doing it for years. And I was really amazed by that, because he's a talent. He had talent as a pitcher and he had athletic ability, but he's a talent on the air. He's not just a former player that is trying to hang in the game and with his expertise and whatnot. He's really good. And so we did maybe 4 games altogether, and he was excellent. And now, maybe by the 3rd game, he's doing the play-by-play. And I'm thinking, wow, he's like channeling Vince Scully. He's got stories going. He's got what's happening in spring training, and he's weaving them in between pitches. And then he's all over the play-by-play while it's happening. And I was so impressed. The problem was, now the next time that he actually was going to work a radio game, and it was just the two of us, was in July. And I don't know where we were, in New York maybe. It had been 4 months had gone by since he'd done a game. And there was a play that he thought he had botched a little bit, and he was embarrassed by it. So then he didn't really ever want to do it again. And I don't think maybe really he ever did do it again. But I tell the story because for me, those few days where he did it day after day proved in my mind, without a doubt, that he'd be great at that. And he'd be great at it now if he decided he wanted to do it. So, which is to say, he's so talented. And I think that he's not just talented from a standpoint of being well-spoken and being able to tell you the stuff that he's seeing in a cogent fashion, but to teach you the game. But he's entertaining. He's an entertainer. He's got showbiz instincts. He's a musician, and he does this stuff, and he's got a sense of rhythm about it, and he's got sort of a little jazz beat going on while he's doing the game, and that's just why he's so good, and what totally, for me, sets him apart from really anybody else out there.
Jon Miller here on 95.7 The Game. Is Mike Krukow's retirement kind of signaling the end of an era, in that you and Dwayne and Mike, you've worked together for more than 3 decades all together? Are we in an era now where the longevity that you guys have shared is not really as possible anymore?
Well, the business is changing. I think that the way it's always been is changing. Major League Baseball is changing the whole idea of how they're going to be, because cable has fallen off. People, what do they call that? They're not unplugging, they're unplugging.
Cutting the cord, John.
Cutting the cord.
Yep.
Cord cutting. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that when my son and now he's designing lunar landers for Jeff Bezos at Blue Origin. But when he went to college, I offered to pay for cable for he and his roommates at the apartment they were living in so that he could watch the ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. And he says, oh, well, that's really nice of you, Dad, but we don't have a TV. You don't have a TV? He said, no, well, we watch TV, but we watch it on the computer. I said, you can watch TV on the computer? He said, yeah. I said, I watch the shows I want to watch on the computer. And I didn't understand how he was doing it, but I that's the first kind of cord-cutting experience that I was directly involved in. And I guess I should have seen that that's the future. But because of that, there have been a lot of these regional TV networks that have gone bankrupt or having serious money problems. MLB has stepped in with the commissioner's got a plan, and now some teams actually have their regional sports network operated by Major League Baseball, and so they're coming up with new models for this. The whole radio business is changing. And maybe you heard, but so who knows how all that's going to play out as time goes on. But what I grew up with was hearing the Giants games on the radio and being in the car and hearing a game on the radio, and at nighttime I could get the Dodger game from LA because there was the atmospheric skip on AM radio. I always remembered I drove up to Eugene, Oregon to see my grandmother when I was just starting college, and then I spent a couple of days, and now I'm driving back at nighttime, and I'd pick up the Dodger game. They were on a very powerful station at the time, KFI, Los Angeles, Earl C. Anthony Incorporated. And and then Vinny, 2 and 2 to Harvey Keene, and so Farmer John and whatever. So it was the first time I ever listened to Vinny do a whole game from start to finish. They were playing the Cubs, and he told stories, and he told stories about why Don Kessinger became a switch hitter, and I was like, wow. I never heard any stories about anybody on the Cubs except for Ernie Banks or Billy Williams. And even then, the stories are always the same. But that was, and I just came away with an appreciation for who Vin Scully was. And that was, when I lived back east, I was doing the Boston Red Sox games, and I would drive home from Fenway Park, and I'd hear Ernie Harwell from Detroit and Jack Buck from St. Louis. You could hear all these games in your car radio driving back, and it was just so cool. And I remember learning a lot from listening, and sometimes hearing stuff and saying, "Oh, I got to remember, I got to give a good description when that happens, and not leave that part out like that guy did, because I'm in the dark now as to what actually happened in that play." So, that's all changed now, and we should have seen it coming. FM was the wave of the future, and it's a better sound than the AM. But there's no atmospheric skip on FM. But then there's streaming, and there's all that satellite radio. So who knows? It boggles my mind to figure about how it is all going to shake down in the future. But for me, baseball on the radio is how I grew up. And the Giants only used to have them 25, 30 games a year on TV in the 60s. And for a while, in the early 60s, it was just the games in L.A. Those were the only TV games you got. And it was the same in L.A., just the games in San Francisco. So all that's changed, and how it's going to materialize in the future, what form it's going to take, I don't know. But I'm old, so who knows how much longer I'll be doing it either. But I'm people keep saying, well, we always thought that Mike and Dwayne, all you guys had said that you just wanted to one day just collapse in the booth and that'd be it, and that would be the way to go, and the way Harry Callis went. So, and I don't know that is the way we want to go. We would like to keep doing this kind of job because it's a pretty sweet gig forever, and who knows if we will or not. But I know one thing is for sure: his legacy from Mike Krukow is very secure, and he's one of a kind. And one of the stories that I always think of, and I wasn't there, but he and his family, and I don't know how many of the kids, they were in a restaurant, a great San Francisco restaurant, and when they got up to leave, the people in the restaurant all started shouting his name, and then he stopped and acknowledged everybody, and then he led them in singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Who could do that? It's Mike Krukow, and they all sang, and he because he's inspiring, and he makes you excited to be a Giants fan and to live in this city. So he's a great ambassador, not just for the game and the team, but the city and this area. So anyway, so that's that's a part of the legend of Kruk.
John, we could listen to these stories absolutely all day, especially coming from you. In that answer, we also got something, I don't know if you know this, we always hope for this whenever we get to talk to you, and that is you doing the Vin Scully impersonation, because it is so elite. But I don't know if you know this, whenever impersonations come up around here, we have a member on our team who does what we think is absolutely one of the best Bay Area sports broadcasting impersonations possible. So we wanted to let him ask you a question today as well. So this is not Dave Fleming, but it might as well be with the next question for you here on this interview.
How you doing, John? Dave Fleming from San Francisco at the corner of 3rd and King from the Hawaiian Airlines broadcast booth. And I'm not here to tell you that Ruben Rivera missed second base, but I am here to ask you a question about the rest of the season for the 2026 Giants. And I want to know, what do you think is the outlook after the trade deadline, John?
Slim!
John!
Wow.
Oh, God.
That's great.
It's good, isn't it?
It's good!
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so
I mean,
that's one of the...
you don't have to answer it, but just bask in it, I guess, John.
I always remember when Dave he had just started with us, and there was the Mets were in town, and it was and I can't remember, it might have been a young Matt Cain pitched a great game, and they were all saying, wow, the great thing is that Matt Cain now that'll be the lead in the New York papers tomorrow. Matt Cain, and they'll all find out about him in the big city and who Matt Cain is, and so then we kind of shook our heads and said, no, I think in the New York papers tomorrow, it's still going to be a bunch of paragraphs about Barry Bonds and steroids and this and that, and then Matt Cain will be buried way down there. And Matt Cain, another Mets game where they couldn't hit against some rookie, and then the next day, a letter to the editor to the New York Times sports section said that much, and they said they told this story, and they gave us all praise. They said, Dwayne Kuiper, Mike Krukow, Jon Miller, et al. They didn't mention Dave's name. They just said et al.
He got it et al. Oh, boy.
And they basically were taking the Times to task. You did exactly what they said you do, and you didn't. All you talked about was steroids and nothing about Matt Cain. I expected more from the Times, and so we read that on the air, and then we were all kind of giving Dave some grief over it, et al. And Kite says, "Well, maybe that should be your new nickname, Flem, et al." And so then we paused for a moment, looked at Dave, and I said, "Dave, by the way, et al. What is that?" And Dave said, "Oh, that's from the Latin et alia, meaning and others." And we all kind of looked at each other and we're like, oh, well, we're making jokes about you, but you're obviously way superior to any of us and a little overqualified for this line of work.
Oh, my gosh.
The only classics major, probably he and Vin Scully had that kind of stuff, that classical education in common. But And that's why, to me, Dave, and who knows the shape that this whole business is going to take in the years to come. But for me, Dave's going to end up being the best there ever was. He is such a treasure, and I know that I feel the same way with Mike and Dwayne, that we're proud that he came up with us. We're as if he's a part of our family, and to see what he's capable of and how good he is at it, and how good he is at all these other sports. So that is why. This broadcast crew, we're all really high on each other, but also very proud to all be in the same crew with each other. And the fact that the Giants have us all work the radio broadcast together when the team's in the postseason is because that doesn't happen.
Right.
We may be the only town where that happens, and the whole idea was, it elevates these games, makes them seem like much bigger and as big as they actually are. So I think we've been very fortunate to work in this town where the people in charge feel that these broadcasts are important, and I know we all feel the same about that. So anyway, I'm very sad about it, and at the same time, I'm very. It kind of brings up the notion of how proud I am to be a part of it, and the crew is, in spite of it all, going out on top. He's better than he's ever been, and he's going out at the top of his game. And very few in this kind of a business, whether in the booth or on the field, have the chance to do it that way.
John, I think the best compliment we can give, and that answer you just gave kind of sums it all up, which is we kind of look at the four of you as one entity. It's one thing, and with Kruk moving on, obviously there'll be a piece of that we don't get back, but all four of you deserve just all the love and all the credit. And you're all representative of one another, and so thank you for being a part of this today. And we're going to spend the next 2 months just soaking up every minute that we've got left, watching and listening to all of you guys.
Great idea, and I appreciate you giving me a chance to talk about it. And I always will remember, and this happens probably in every broadcast every day. It's just that most of those broadcasts, I'm in one booth with Dave and Kruk and Kuiper in another booth, and none of us hear each other most of the time. But when Connor Gillespie hit a 3-run homer against Juris Familia in the wild card game in New York, remember this game? What a game!
Oh yeah!
And those were the only runs of the game. I think the Giants won 3-0. Bumgarner. It was another one of those incredible postseason masterpieces. But the home runs to the 8th inning, and people started leaving. And when that inning's over, it seemed like half the stadium stood up and started to leave. So I described that on the radio, and Kruk said, it's like somebody just came out and made an announcement that there's free pizza out in the parking lot.
That's a perfect picture.
That's exactly what it was like. It was exactly what it was like. And I think that the cool thing is, I'll never forget that, because I just had a sort of a belly laugh over it. But and I think there's a moment like that every day, because he's such a talent.
John, you're the best. That was just so fun to talk all of that out with you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. All the best.
Thanks, John.
Jon Miller.